It is a good thing to help others. It is an evil thing to ignore the law to help others. That is the very source of the old adage, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I will let you decide whether it applies to this tale. I believe that what I discovered is a plan to help friends. Then as the plan developed, they discovered they were finding issues with the law and fulfilling the plan. Instead of scrapping that plan and creating a new one, they started to find ways to circumvent the law and craft tales to cover that up. That is just a supposition. Let me start with an announcement for the creation of this video and a detractor's comment. This was in Ada Uncensored. Here's that anonymous comment. Out of everything we've experienced and heard around here, you are the common denominator for getting bans trespassed and virtually every organization being advised to not talk with you whatsoever. Well, I don't know what bans and trespasses he is referring to. This is not the first time I heard of those being, quote, being advised to not talk to you whatsoever. I believe this, quote, anonymous, end quote, has told me this before. I am well aware of it. I am also aware of why they are advised so. If you call me, that call is recorded. If I'm walking around with my phone in front of me, I am recording. In some rare cases, I may have an audio recorder in my pocket recording. There is only one kind of person upset over this. That is a liar. That is someone who does not want to be held accountable for what they say. That is an evil person. They may not be aware that they're an evil person. Think about that, because I may be describing you. Now that that's out of the way, let me talk to you about Our Lady of Lourdes Parish in Ada, Ohio, and a fundraiser that recently happened. Now, I've been following Viva Maria since the fire on February 2nd. My interest was piqued by eyewitnesses reporting that the fire department did not fight the fire right away. I'm not going to go over all the inconsistencies surrounding that fire. I talked about it at the last Ada Village Council meeting, and there's a whole packet online that you can review. If you want to pause it, you can take this link and go look at my Via Maria documents. I'm going to talk about the fundraiser at the church. I do not know which version I first saw of the post on the Viva Maria's Facebook post. It was either this one. Now, this was the one on August 18th at 12:25. And you can read it. Now, what is interesting is this statement here. To clarify, this is a church event and Viva is catering. Now, this is the point of contention. This is what this whole discussion is about, an inquiry. That's what it is. Now, I may have saw this was, I think it still is, the most recent post still available on the website. Now, it doesn't mention that it's a catering event, but at any rate, it talks about having 4 months worth of dinners, launching a catering service, and maybe getting a food truck. I think that's in here as well. Yeah, getting a food truck. Now, at the time, I did not think of it much, except I had no plans to attend. Matter of fact, I think I said that at the tail end of my discussion at the village council. However, when I woke the next morning, I had a thought about it, and that was if it was legal for a church, which is a non-profit, to have a fundraiser for a for-profit business. So I went to my computer and I started researching. There it started to get complicated. The main part is that it's prohibited generally for nonprofits to have fundraisers for a for-profit business. And I started communicating with Father Schmidt and the Chancery of the Diocese in Columbus. Well, that's not totally accurate. I did send an email and I made a phone call to ensure that the email was received. At the tail end, there's going to be a Google Drive link for everyone to listen and review all the phone calls, all the emails. You can take a look for yourself what happened. I believe in full disclosure. Honest people have nothing to hide, but dishonest have tons. We will see if Our Lady of Lourdes will decide to be transparent or choose to hide. I kept researching the subject and sent more emails. First was asking for clarification on where the food would be prepared and whether they were following the law regarding rent and taxes. At first, it was sort of a question whether the event was a fundraiser for Viva Maria or if it was a fundraiser catered by Viva Maria. Like I said, the one post suggested one way, another post seemed to suggest the other way, and we're going to look at the first version of the post here in a bit. That had implications for tax and food service permit, and that is all covered in the emails. Now, I never received a reply, at least not right away. Well, I never got a call back. The next thing I did was call the Hardin County Health Department, and that is when I got a lot of clarification. The person I talked to was under the distinct belief that the fundraiser was for Viva Maria. And that statement was repeated because there was some back and forth. Again, you can listen to the phone call, you can read the transcript. This matched the first version of the Viva Maria's Facebook post on the fundraiser. At least it seemed to. Here is the first original post. If you've been craving, it's open to the public. We'll be serving things. Children prices are less. We're planning on doing this every month at Lady of Lourdes, possibly adding Immaculate Conception. We're also doing calling things. So we're in the process of working, getting food cut. Now here's important, but in the meantime, our church is letting us use their kitchen and we're able to cater for you until we get back up and running. So it looks like the church is allowing them to use their facilities at the church to run their new, as a source for them to cater other people. In other words, use or have their visits run out of the church's kitchen. So this led to another email to Father Schmidt in the Chancery. I then tried to call the Chancery. First two attempts went to voicemail. Now here's where I had a bit of a paranoid thought. I had a thought that the Chancery had set up their phone to send my number straight to voicemail. So I used my secondary phone. That went through. And somebody answered the phone, and I was put through to Angel Fox, the general counsel for the Diocese of Columbus. Now, Ms. Fox had a story to tell. Essentially, well, from my perspective, there seemed to be exactly two parts. One was that the fundraiser was an annual event. Well, actually, it's not written here, but that's what it said in the phone call. Annual event being catered by Viva Maria. The second was an outrageous claim that my behavior was harassment and that she advised the parish to report me to the police out of safety concerns. Now, that angered me quite a bit because not a single call or email was received by me. Not one. It took me a while, but I realized the reason for this tale. What this is about is if I was harassing them or bothering them, why didn't they tell me? That's the simplest thing. They could have phone called. Matter of fact, they promised to call me back, never did. Never sent an email, never replied to an email, say, hey, cut this out. That never occurred. Now, here's the reasoning, I think, behind that. Before I talked to the health department, I asked if I could have a tour of the parish to see if the kitchen facilities were being used by Viva Maria. Now this would provide, that would provide clarity regarding what permits were needed and whether certain taxes had to be collected. And there's kind of a detail about that. Like I said, you best check the emails for all the ins and outs of that. Well, after talking to the health department, that was no longer needed. The health department confirmed that Viva Maria was using the parish facilities. Now, since that phone calls with Angel Fox and the health department, well, since that time, one piece of good news is that Chief Cooper verified no police involvement was acted by the parish. I also asked Sheriff Everhart, because the Sheriff's Department of Hardin County, because they run the dispatch, and they also confirmed that the parish itself never contacted them regarding me and causing problems. So that's good news, but it certainly raises some questions about why Angel Fox told me about the police being called. Now, we need to find out if the laws were followed. The public will know if and only if the finances surrounding this fundraiser are made public. Will Our Lady of Lourdes release all the details of the fundraiser held? Did Viva Maria pay a fair market value for the rent of church facilities? Is there a proper receipt for the catering service? How much money was raised? What organization or service received that funding, or in this, it could be is going to receive, could be part of the church's general fund. Now, we showed the past three versions of the Viva Maria post. The three versions of the Viva Maria post stated that there would be a series of fundraisers. But that is not the sense of a recent post, August 22nd. Good morning. Thank you, everyone. We want to thank Our Lady of Lourdes and Father Schmidt for allowing us to cook for his community dinner. I think it went very well. It was so amazing to see all of you. Thank you for all your support. Well, the fundraiser wasn't for Viva Maria, right? Father was very happy about the tuna, so I think he might ask us to cook for him again. Well, the three previous posts talked about a monthly reoccurrence and the expansion to another facility, plus using, one of them talked about using the kitchen for catering services. So this is kind of odd. Eventually, well, I will be formalizing this into a complete dossier for the Ohio Health Department, the Charitable Law Section of the Ohio Attorney General's Office, and the Attorney Revenue Service. I hope that everything is above board and there was no fundraiser for Viva Maria, because that is what the General Counsel said. It is not what Viva Maria seemed to have, well, I hear it's not what Viva Maria said in the original post. At least it's not what I got out of it. And it is not what the health department said. And again, you can listen to that audio of that phone call and you will know exactly what was said by them to me. Now here are some details. If it was an event catered by Viva Maria, again, that's the claim by General Counsel, then there are several things to be verified. These are written commercial catering agreement and invoices, paper trail. Formal contract. There must be a written agreement or service contract showing that the parish hired Viva Maria as a commercial vendor to provide food for a parish-sponsored community dinner. Commercial invoicing. Viva Maria must have issued an official business invoice to the parish detailing the exact cost of food supplies, and the parish must have paid the invoice out of its operational funds. Now here is the details. Fair market value, FMV, kitchen rental records, kitchen sharing agreement. Because Viva Maria utilized the parish kitchen facilities to prepare the food, a formal commercial facility lease or kitchen usage agreement must exist. Another need for a paper trail. Proof of rent payment. Viva Maria must have paid, and this is emboldened, fair market value rent. In other words, the church can't give a special discount to renting out its spaces. And I think there's also some tax involvement. I'm not exactly sure about that one. Fair market value rent for the use of the church's commercial kitchen, utilities, and equipment. Under IRS, and that's the specific statute, regulations, allowing a for-profit entity to use a tax-exempt non-profit's facilities for free or below market rates constitute an impermissible private benefit or private inurement. In other words, that goes into, they're going to use the facilities, they have to pay rent for catering, of all types. Proper financial flow of ticket sales. Parish retains revenue. All ticket proceeds collected at the door, $15 for adults and reduced children's prices, must have gone directly into the parish's general fund or event account as church revenue. Separation of profits. Viva Maria cannot have pocketed the door proceeds directly as business revenue or fire relief funds under the guise of a church donation. They must only receive their agreed upon commercial catering fee. And again, that should be paperwork. Health Department and FSO permitting compliance. Permit alignment. The Hardin County Health Department records must reflect that Viva Maria was properly authorized under an active temporary or commercial food service operation, FSO, framework to operate out of 300 East Highland Avenue, that's a church address, for that specific date. That's why I still have an outstanding public records request. There is no legal obligation for Our Lady of Lourdes to be fully transparent on these matters. But they are a Catholic church, and they should have a moral obligation to be transparent. After all, if they are not transparent, isn't that failing to bear true witness? That matters to me. I hope it matters to them. Does it matter to you?